Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to this conference. As you know by now, I'm Matthew Buckley. I've been the moderator for the conference and also the lead expert for Making Spend Matter. So far today, we've explained what the good practice is. We have explained what basic spend analysis is. We've looked at the different elements of optional transfer. And we've also looked at what our cities have achieved over the course of the network. We're now moving into our final session, where we've assembled a panel of people from across institutions across Europe. So we're going to have the opportunity to listen to each of our panel members for 4 minutes, who have been asked to talk about a predefined question and to give their response to that predefined question. We'll then have some opportunity for further questioning of our panel members by myself. And then we will look to conclude the conference by sharing our key learning and our recommendations. Can I have the next slide, please? So just to introduce each of our panel members before we ask them to respond to their question. You know by now Tamar Ray, who's been the lead partner coordinator for Make and Spend Matter. And works for Preston City Council. We have Alderman Thomas Ereli from the municipality of Schaerbeek, who have very kindly hosted the conference today and have been a key partner in the Make and Spend Matter network. We have Stefan Appel from DG Regio in the European Commission. We have Marceline Bonneau, who is from URBACT, a programme level expert at URBACT. And we have Igor Idareta from Zabala Innovation Consulting in Pamplona. You're all very welcome to this final panel session of the conference. I'm going to start with you, Tamar, if I may, with your question. Can you tell us, what do we mean by better places and stronger communities in the context of strategic procurement?
Thank you, Matthew. So municipalities and cities have a responsibility to create, to the best of their ability and also within the limits of their control, a quality of place and life for their citizens. And public procurement is the means through which municipalities purchase goods, works and services which meet the needs of their citizens, thereby improving places and enabling stronger communities. This goes to the heart of Making Spend Matter. We've talked a lot this morning about how we can use public procurement as a lever to address our city's challenges around unemployment by creating new jobs, better employment through fair pay and supporting existing jobs, improving skills through apprenticeships and other training programs, and tackling environmental issues such as reducing carbon emissions, distance travelled and product packaging. And also improving citizen health through access to good and affordable food, improving air quality, and offering volunteering opportunities. And finally, working with our businesses through capacity building or breaking contracts down into smaller lots, raising visibility of opportunities, so that if they want, they have the opportunity to bid for contracts with us, or support the creation of new businesses which could potentially fill gaps in the market. It's also about consulting and co-designing services with communities, which meets their needs and benefits local people. And it's about working in partnership and collaboration with other institutions based in our cities to maximise the impact that strategic procurement can have in terms of addressing identified challenges. These things are even more important in the context of the pandemic and rebuilding or building back our economies. In Preston, as I mentioned before, our current URBACT local group has agreed an action plan, one priority of which is about understanding the impact of COVID-19, both on businesses, whether they've survived the pandemic or not, and people, particularly young people, in terms of employment and skills needs, so that we can tailor our procurement opportunities to support those needs where appropriate and possible. And it's also where having a social value procurement framework or a strategic procurement plan, which was something discussed in the parallel session 1, comes in, because you can use these to help you deliver tangible change for communities and place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamar. I should have said right at the beginning, we're talking about what needs to happen for strategic procurement to become more mainstream into the future. We're now going to hear from another city voice, which is Alderman Thomas Early from the municipality of Schaerbeek. Thomas, can you tell us why it's important for the municipality of Schaerbeek to be strategic in its approach to procurement?
Thank you, Matthew. Donc, nous étions au carrefour des crises économiques, sociales et environnementales.
Well, we were at the crossroads of an economic and social and health crisis, and the pandemic has only exacerbated that. But we have to change the model and accelerate the ecological, social, and digital transition in order to do so. Schaerbeek is a municipality of 35,000 inhabitants where there is a high percentage of 30% of unemployment, which means that over 10% of the population lives on the threshold of poverty. So Schaerbeek has taken a commitment to improve things by 2030. And the municipality of Schaerbeek, as a public authority, can and must be an actor of positive change for its citizens. It can do so through different ways, by awareness raising to the climate and environment issues, but also through public procurements. Through public procurements, we can make the right expenditures to respond to the needs of our community. The aims of the municipality of Schaerbeek is to become a responsible consumer, the most responsible consumer. So we have this ambition to really push our municipality towards more responsibility, both on social, economic, and environmental levels. We want to accelerate our evolution, and we have the conviction that we can do so by associating the citizens and inhabitants of our municipality who are claiming more transparency, more responsibility from the public powers. This is why we have developed a new approach to public procurement. We think that through this new approach, we will be able to create local employment, which will respond to the need to solve the problem of unemployment, but also by creating solidarity and action for climate. Schaerbeek must use its public power with responsibility and efficiency, and the citizens of Schaerbeek must know that each public procurement passed by the municipality is done in the desire of being as sustainable as possible. In the past, we have already done so through catering in schools, for example, with season food, or with the recuperation of material. But now we want to go way beyond. We want it to become systematic for every public procurement of the municipality. So, applying this approach to every public procurement of the city is not so easy. We have to adapt current legislation to new economic realities and social realities, and this is why we have developed a strategic plan. The strategic plan is not just a catalogue of good intentions, it's a catalogue of action. It's a plan of actions on the short term, on the medium term, and long term, with a budgetization of all expenses and services purchased, or actions that allow us to develop tools and make them available to stakeholders. And also in order to make the social and environmental capacity of small and PMEs, SMEs, more accessible. This will allow us to make the best public procurements in the world and the best public procurements for the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I really like the conclusion there about the best public procurements in the world. That's quite an aspiration, which is a great aspiration to have, and something that we're all looking to achieve, I think, through the process of procurement. So we've heard from two city voices there in terms of kind of why strategic procurement is important for the future. And I want to hear from Stefan Appel from DG Regio in the European Commission. Stefan, how is the European Commission enabling and promoting a more strategic approach to procurement? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I think it's really important because, as some of you might know, DG Regio is responsible for funding for cohesion policy. And that is the biggest part of the investment funding from the EU budget. Basically, the European Regional Development Fund and the Cohesion Fund. This is a total volume of 274 billion for the period 14-20 and around 260 billion for the next period 2021 to 27. Plus, we have now the REACT-EU fund, another 47.5 billion, and the Just Transition Fund of 17.5 billion. So I don't want to bore you with the different funds, but I think it's clear there is a lot of money, and we, together with the member states, have an interest that this money is invested well and for the right purpose in order to achieve the policy objectives of cohesion policy. So why is strategic procurement then important? And first, we want to achieve better value for money. And you may know that almost half of our funding is deployed via public procurement. So with a strategic procurement approach, we can provide better value for money of cohesion policy investments and contribute to addressing a number of the major challenges in a Europe full of regions with, let's say, disadvantages, which is lagging behind, or with particular structural problems. So we want to have a smarter, greener, and more social Europe. We should use strategic procurement. A second reason is that we want to ensure a level playing field and a fair competition. So I think strategic procurement is a tool to ensure that all bidders have to follow the same security, labor, environmental standards, and nobody has a certain privilege because they can escape it. It is a tool to ensure a level playing field, and then we get the best bid, the best offer for the product we ask for. And thirdly, obviously, we are looking for the way how to invest cohesion funding the best and the most efficient and effective way. And what do we want? We are talking about circular economy, of modernizing supply chain models. We want to have a digital transition. So we want to maximize the contribution, and through strategic procurement, we can improve the impact of our investments. And the public sector has a leading role, first of all, by setting standards, as well as also by, as we saw the numbers, by a demand pull. So it is a very important instrument to develop and shape the markets for better products and services. And this is in particular true in a post, not really post, but let's say for the recovery process in the post-pandemic period, of which we are hopefully starting very soon. So what are we actually doing? And we have inserted, so to say, advice for our partners in the negotiations with member states, how to approach strategic procurement. So it is an element of our, in a way, negotiation mandate. And secondly, my DG has worked on a number of, let's say, awareness-raising tools, pilot projects, etc. So just to name a few, we have a so-called peer exchange tool, Regio peer-to-peer under the TAIEX heading, where we allow member states to meet peers to discuss certain problems. We have a pilot project with OECD on strategic procurement, and we have a number of, let's say, awareness-raising events with audit authorities, beneficiaries, and managing authorities. Just to say, all these are meant to help our partners to have a better understanding of strategic procurement, because it is a very important tool to improve the impact of our cohesion funding. And this is what is in the interest of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stefan. It's really great to hear such a positive approach from the Commission to strategic procurement. So thank you. I'd now like to move on to Marceline Bonneau from URBACT. Marceline, obviously we've heard all about the Make and Spend Matter transfer network, but what are other URBACT networks and wider European projects doing in relation to strategic procurement? Thanks, Marceline.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I'd like to build on the first speech, which was given by Adele this morning, where she already introduced the importance of public procurement for URBACT and the whole URBACT process. But I just wanted to stress that really for URBACT, for the URBACT program, procurement is really a key tool to act as a strategic lever for cities to address economic, social, and environmental challenges that they face. So it's been repeated throughout the whole morning. I'm not going to spend more time on it, but used correctly in an innovative way, in creative ways, as it's been showcased throughout the morning, it can be really a useful tool. We've talked about Making Spend Matter network, obviously, led by Preston, so I'm not going to go back to it. It's funded by the URBACT program and supported by it. And its ancestor was the Procure network, which has already also touched upon by Tamar earlier on today, and it was already led by Preston. So the URBACT program is also supporting other networks which are not directly addressing public procurement, but use procurement as a tool to address their main foci, which can be of very different scopes. Just to give you a few examples, the Biocanteens network, led by Montsartou in the south of France, is transferring the practice of this city, Montsartou, of organic school canteens. One of the ways they have approached it was to use procurement in a different way to ensure that products would be local, organic, and fresh, as well as cooked in the canteens. Other examples are from the Playful Paradigm, for example, which is a network which focuses on gamification for the promotion of social inclusion. They have used public procurement in very different ways there. Public procurement has also been used in various URBACT networks, for example, for the revitalization of historic districts, for example, in the Urban Regeneration Mix network. So public procurement is used in very different ways in the different networks. URBACT has also contributed to the Urban Agenda Partnerships on public procurement. The city of Preston was a member of it, a leader responsible for the action on measuring spend and impact. Lublin, which was a city in the Procure network, was also involved in the partnership. All this together, all this contribution from the URBACT program have led to a very important initiative that I would like to share with you now, which is an online course on strategic procurement, which is going on right now via the URBACT website. That's a course that you can still join. There are 3 more classes, upcoming classes until the end of the month. That's a course which is really seeking to help cities achieving the European policy goals, such as the Green Deal, and to use public procurement as a strategic tool. You can find all the previous recordings there on the website. I'll share, or we'll try and share the link with you in parallel. It's urbact.eu/procurement. The 3 upcoming sessions are on commissioning, procurement, tendering and decision-making, and contract monitoring. You have videos, theories, case studies, exercises. Obviously, it's more efficient to follow the course as a normal course, but you can also get access to the previous recordings and what will become the previous recordings later on. There are more than 500 people taking part in these events, in these classes. These are decision makers, policy makers, experts, anybody who's really interested in this topic. Also, for your information, this course will be translated and will also have something which can be of interest for all of you. We'll have a specific session dedicated to public procurement at the URBACT City Festival, which will take place between the 15th and 17th of June. So you can already save the date. Between the 15th and 17th of June, you have the URBACT City Festival, and some sessions will be specifically dedicated to procurement. So don't hesitate to save the date and register whenever registrations are open. Thank you very much.
Marceline, thanks so much. A really great promotion of all the work that URBACT's undertaken. We've heard from 4 what I would call public sector organisations. We thought it would be really important to get a business voice as part of this conference as well. So I'm delighted to introduce Igor Idereta from Zabala Innovation Consulting in Pamplona. Igor, how can businesses contribute towards delivering wider economic, social, and environmental outcomes through the delivery of procurement contracts? Thank you, Igor.
Thanks a lot, Matthew, and thank you for inviting us to participate in the conference to show the, let's say, the point of view of the businesses. Okay, so let's say that in practice we are part of our work. It's also being in contact and providing services to some public authorities at different levels. In our case, we work both with local, regional, national, and also European administrations. And in our case, we used to face these public tenders, trying to get this, let's say, these extra points in the tenders. Okay, so in general, I would say that in this procurement exercise, basically we could group the added values or the potential contributions in different categories. One of the most typical ones is the environmental one. Okay, so things that we can make as well. It's when we are providing the services. Are things like, for example, minimizing our carbon footprint when we are providing the service. That it can be, for example, by using low carbon transport means, for example, including electric vehicles, or minimizing the use of raw materials. In our case, for example, it's mainly avoiding the use of paper in our works, or using recycled materials, etc. But it is not only about environmental issues. We can consider as well some social aspects, and in that sense, we used to include also disabled workers on the service provision. So it's a way also to increase the value of our service, or sometimes also hiring some additional personnel that it's located in these specific areas. So we are also trying to make more dynamic the economy in that area, or also including gender plans. That it's something that it's gonna be more and more important in the coming years. And finally, we can also add some additional economic values that are good for the administration, but are also good also for us, for the companies, in terms of adding aspects like the using of digital collaborative tools, all the digital transformation, etc., can be more effective in both sides, both for the businesses, both for the administration, or including some specific management methodologies that can improve and ensure the timely delivery and the quality of the results. So basically, these are some examples, but you can imagine many more. At the end, from our point of view, let's say that we see these procurement actions like a driver of change, and also of modernization of our activities, and also improving our services. So don't get stuck in the same type of services, and try to improve and go farther in our activities.
Thank you, Igor. That's really great, and it's great to see a business being so progressive in its approach to delivering procurement contracts. I'd like to now invite all of our speakers onto the screen, and we're going to have some follow-up questions. Now, some of these have come from the audience, and some of them I've kind of pre-prepared, so we're going to try and blend the two. but hopefully there's nothing that you've not seen before, hopefully. So I'd like to start with Stefan and Thomas, if that's okay. We've talked a lot about strategic procurement and cities. What is stopping cities from being more strategic in procurement? What are the barriers? Stefan, can I start with you?
Yeah, it's very kind of you to invite me first, because I don't work in the city. What I can say is from our, in a way, perception and what we have seen, I think there is certainly often a lack of real familiarity and competence with procurement rules. And if you so want, the easiest way is just to look at the price criteria in order to avoid problems, corrections later on. And I think the second, I would say, idea which is sometimes missing is it is probably a different way of thinking, not to seeing public procurement as a process, but as a tool to say, look, I can achieve certain policy objectives by defining my public procurement terms in order to achieve a certain outcome. It's not just about selling a public good, it is about achieving a public policy objective.
Great. And Thomas, thoughts? What do you think are the barriers that other cities, other than Schaerbeek, face in adopting a strategic approach to procurement?
Eh bien, donc c'est vrai qu'au départ, il faut avoir une impulsion, une vraie volonté
Well, you
politique
need to
pour
know
s'engager
that
dans
at the beginning you need to have a strong political will in order to start such a process, to revise the procurement process, collecting data, sharing data about spending in a municipality can be very complicated because these different services of the administration do not always share the same methodology to collect data and analyze data, so it's not always easy for them to communicate. Then there is another element which is related to the legislation about public procurement. It's very technical, there are very accurate and specific legal issues, and that's why it's very important to train the members of staff. That's one of the main elements of the strategic plan in Schaerbeek. We want to train the staff members in the administration so that they can manage the public procurement procedures. And then you need time, you need energy to check the execution, the implementation of specific clauses in the public procurement, and that requires time too.
Brilliant, Thomas, thank you. So we've got 4 barriers there. We've got challenges around the rules, we've got challenges around culture, we've got challenges around politics and political will, and we've got challenges around training. Marceline, how do we overcome those challenges?
Well, I think some answers have already been given, whether by Stefan and Thomas, but also throughout the whole morning. So I'm not going to repeat all of them. I'll just start maybe by repeating once again one of Adele's words, which were to take risks and really to make mistakes, so to try and experiment. We talked also about the fact that we need motivated teams. And having worked with both Schaerbeek and Preston, I can really see that you really have leaders, but both at the political level and at the administration level. And it's only through this kind of personal commitment that there can really be transformation within the administration, by the way, with regard to public procurement, but other ways of making local policies also more relevant. So this, overall, it's keeping an open mind, trying to bend the rules, trying to, as Stefan said as well, really understanding what the framework is about. And I just want to share with you 2 examples from the bio-canteens network. So really with a strong focus on food. The first one was the fact that in this network, obviously school canteens are bound by regulations, how to make public procurement possible in certain ways. And we've observed that in many schools, there is a strong misunderstanding as to what's possible or not. So once again, capacity building, good knowledge and understanding about what's required. And I'd like to repeat the words mentioned by Gilles Perrol yesterday at an event led by bio-canteens, where they really push for the food exception public procurement. Gilles Perrol is an elected representative, so he can say these kind of things, but he was really saying not even to bend the rules, but to go beyond the rules, to take some further risk and to really act as a change maker at the city level.
Yeah, thank you, Marceline. I'll bring in Igor for the business perspective. Igor, what are the key barriers that you face with procurement processes as a business, and how do you think cities should overcome those barriers?
Thank you, Matthew. Hard to say what are the barriers that we face. And let's say that in general, we see the most practical barriers that are more related with the ways that this procurement is implemented. Okay. So sometimes, let's say that the rules or the administrative procedures that are established in the tendering processes are not always, let's say, user-friendly, or sometimes the requirements they are asking, they are not easy to fulfill by the companies, but not because of lack of interest, but of difficulty to demonstrate some aspects. So I would say that in general we face the barriers associated to the fact that in theory things in the paper are really nice, it looks perfect, but when you are in practice trying to solve that in the contracts, you face some aspects that probably needs an improvement. And in that case, it would be good if in the tendering processes there could be a way of providing some practical feedback from the tenderers to the administrations in terms of showing that gaps or that issues that could be maybe solved in other ways, in other innovative ways or different ways, and try if this feedback can fit on the administrative procedures that must have all the tender process.
That's really interesting, Igor. So there needs to be more support for businesses to actually deliver upon these wider economic, social, and environmental outcomes that we've been talking about.
Definitely.
Just linked to that, and this is a question for everyone. What other, we've talked a lot about social and environmental considerations, haven't we? What other issues do you think procurement should contribute towards moving forward? This links to a question from the chat, which is has any city worked on gender responsive public procurement, for example? So I'll take each of you in turn, actually. Can I start with you, Marceline? What other issues do you think procurement should contribute towards?
So you started with gender, so I'm not going to repeat it. I'd just like to mention, just for information also for everybody, that the URBACT program has done a lot of work on gender equal cities. And that is also some information which can be extremely interesting for all the participants. And we'll also try and share the link with the participants in a minute in the chat. For me, there are three aspects also to take into consideration. So the first one will be that to look into more integrated approaches, integrated ways of doing local, addressing, I would say, the tenders in a systemic and holistic way, which means also looking at the methodology. So it's not about pure technical points, but the way we're going to implement these projects or these services. The second one is to stress also the need to reinforce local economy. Once again, together with this integrated approach. And the last one is to further reflect upon the current situation that we're having right now, the impact of the crisis, and to move towards more resilience. So all these are considerations that should be taken further into the design of tendering processes. Thank you.
Great, Marceline. Can I take Thomas next, please?
Et donc, C'est vrai qu'il faut s'informer et
Yes,
s'intéresser
indeed. I think we need
l'environnement
to collect
économique local.
information
Et vous disiez la question
about
du
the
genre,
local economic
on
environment. And
oublie,
as you said, we
elle
tend to
concerne
forget
également
the
l'organisation
gender
des
issue, but
marchés
it's also
publics.
related to the organization of public
C'est une
procurement
étude
procedures.
qui avait montré
And there was a
une étude réalisée
study
par l'ITC et Chatham
carried
House
out by
sur les genres et
ITC
les
and
marchés
Chatham
publics dans le monde qui
House
avait montré que
about
1% des
public
marchés publics sont
procurement in
remportés
the
par des femmes.
world. And they said that
C'était une
1% of
dimension
public
qu'il faut
procurement
aussi
were actually investing
qu'il faut
in
prendre en
women
compte, et
or
donc considérer le concept de
granted to
social
women.
au
So
sens
I believe
large.
that's very important. And we need to take
C'est vrai
into
qu'on pense
account the
traditionnellement, c'est
social
habituel aux
dimension
clauses sociales
in
pour les
its
marchés de
very
travaux,
wide sense.
et
It's
elles
true
sont
that very
importantes pour la
often we
formation et
refer
la
to
réinsertion
works contracts,
professionnelle.
but women are very important
Mais
when
il y
it
a
comes
d'autres
to
thématiques qui peuvent
employment,
être abordées dans le champ du social.
professional
Nous, à Schaerbeek, on
integration,
y
and
avait
there are
déjà
all
été,
other social
attentifs pour
aspects
un
that
marché
should
de
be taken
fête
into
dans
account.
un
For
parc,
example, in Schaerbeek, we
le
had a
parc
public
Josaphat, le plus beau
procurement
parc
to
de
organize
Belgique
a
et
party,
probablement
an
du monde,
event
mais ça,
in the
peu de gens le
Parc
savent.
Josaphat. It's probably the most
Et dans ce
beautiful
parc, eh bien,
park
le
in
prestataire,
Brussels and
on
in the
avait demandé
world,
qu'il soit
even
attentif à
if
la question
people
du
don't
genre
know about that.
et de la
And
diversité
we
dans sa
wanted to talk
communication
about
au
the
niveau de
gender
l'image, de
issue
la
and
langue,
diversity in
et
our
qu'il combatte les
communication
stéréotypes
in order
liés
to
au
fight
sexe.
against stereotypes
Par
based
exemple, et aussi on
on
avait
gender.
demandé
We
que
also
la fête soit
asked
rendue accessible aux personnes
for this
handicapées.
event to
Donc
be
voilà,
accessible
cette
to
dimension-là, on doit
people
aussi
with
l'avoir en tête
disabilities. And this is something that we have to bear in
produire
mind
un
when
marché
we
public quel qu'il
produce
soit.
public procurement, whatever its objective.
Thank you, Thomas. I completely agree on the beautiful nature of the park in Schaerbeek. It is fantastic. Stefan, anything to add?
I also agree on the beauty of the Park Josaphat. So that's for sure. No, I think I will refrain from the Commission side to tell what needs to be done in different areas, because I think the situations are quite different. But what is important, I think, what comes out of this discussion quite clearly is that with public procurement, you can target certain policy objectives, whether it's gender equality, whether it's social inclusion, whether it's any minority issues. And I think what is the other important element of it, that the public sector, through its tendering processes, can set the tone. It can create a certain demand, but it can also set the tone of what the train of thought is of the authorities, and then others will probably follow to some extent. So I think from many aspects, but also from this aspect, the public procurement is a very useful tool to achieve strategic objectives. It's not just a process. Thank you.
Great. And Igor, you've already talked about gender responsive public procurement. Have you got any other thoughts on issues that procurement should be contributing towards?
Yes, I mentioned gender issues mainly under the social impact components, and we also I would like also to contribute on maybe another aspect that it's also a little bit linked with my conclusion in the initial question, that it was this using the procurements as a driver of change in the companies. So I think also it gives us the opportunity to push the innovation and to ask for innovative services, innovative ways of providing these services, and trying to make the businesses more competitive in that sense. Sometimes we used to say that the demand is asking us to be more innovative. So I strongly support that innovation should be an aspect that in any way could be supported by this strategic procurement, because at the end provides a strong effect on the market, making the businesses active, proactive, and also very competitive in the market. So I would like to highlight that aspect as well.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Igor, because rather than waiting for the public sector to say, look, businesses, we want you to address this issue, It's about the businesses being innovative and creative in how they respond to those tender documents and to thinking about the types of social and environmental benefit they can bring organically. So that's good. Last couple of minutes of questions and then we'll move to the conclusion. We're obviously in a pandemic at the moment, COVID-19. How can cities use procurement to overcome the challenges that COVID-19 has presented for our economies and for our communities? I'm going to come to you, Stefan, first again, if that's okay. It's a tough question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think it gives me maybe the occasion to say many people complain about public procurement rules, but if you look closely at them, I think they have a number of flexibilities. And I think a lot of flexibilities could be used now in this COVID crisis. So I think it's also, we'll say the rules are also an opportunity for public authorities to be very quick in case of an emergency. So of course, when we are from the Commission side, are obviously, I would say not worried, but I think aware that our authorities are confronted with a lot of money following different rules, which needs to be mostly procured. So I think that's why it's important that there is the necessary competences, capacity, and familiarity, not only to comply with the rules, but as we are discussing here, also to use the funds in the right way, meaning also to use public procurement in a strategic way in order to achieve the policy objectives. But I think what the architecture of instrument which is available gives it all. We had Quick Plus for very, let's say, urgent responses. We have now REACT-EU as in a way an extension of the current program period for this, let's say, short to medium term continuation of recovery messages. And then we have the next program period starting basically now with the negotiations, etc. For the medium long-term recovery and reconstruction. And we have also the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is an additional element of funding for things which we need to address in order to make our economies, and that's the whole purpose, not only to recover, but also to make more sustainable and also more healthy in order to cope with future crises better as we did this time. Thank you.
Great. And I'll leave the final word on this segment to Thomas, if I may. Thomas, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's true that with COVID, different sectors have been affected, impacted differently, so public procurement should enable us to give a positive momentum to those sectors. Now, what is important, in my view, is to make sure that administrations become familiar with this possibility of launching tendering processes according to their needs and not according to the expected solutions, because very often companies, businesses and markets are very innovative and producers are experts in their field. They can also provide more profitable solutions that can be adapted to the crisis situation. So I believe that this is essential for the challenges we have to take up in view of the health crisis. We need to think about the needs and not about the expected solutions. And to do that, it is important to reinforce communication and trust between public administration and the private sector. And we need to have an efficient communication based on trust to clarify the needs, discover solutions, and to adapt to a new economic and social situation. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Thomas. Two very important words at the end, the importance of relationships and the importance of communication, which I think are key to strategic procurement moving forward. I'd just like to say thank you very much to all of our panel members, to Thomas, to Stefan, to Igor, and to Marceline. Thank you very much. You will notice that I deliberately didn't ask Tamar any questions, because I'm going to ask Tamar 2 questions now as part of the conclusion. So please may we have the next slide. Thank you. Great. So we're entering the last, I think, 6 minutes of the conference. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Tamar, what is the overarching learning of our partners and of the network?
Actually, there's lots of things, and this slide mentions but a few of them. And the first one is that exchange and learning really does work. The ability to exchange through transnational and bilateral meetings has been key to enabling collective learning. We've also met online a number of times due to COVID-19, and that's demonstrated that whilst online learning is incredibly useful, there's no substitute for both formal and informal face-to-face engagement. We've all developed our skills. This includes procurement, because not all of us are procurement practitioners who've been involved in the network. And the network has delivered many practical things. So it's not just been a theoretical transfer. Partners have learned how to undertake basic spend analysis, how to embed social and environmental criteria, for example. And as we know, procurement is part of a bigger picture. As we've discussed many times today, it's a tool, it's a lever that can be used to bring about real change, as well as a number of other economic, social, and environmental benefits. And first and foremost, procurement is about cooperation and collaboration. It's not just about a transaction between a municipality and supplier. As you said earlier, it's about a relationship to realize those wider outcomes, and also about working in partnership with other institutions.
Great, so we've been working on this network for 2.5 years, Tamar. What are we recommending that other cities do into the future and other organisations?
Okay, so there are actually 10 recommendations. You'll be relieved to know that I'm not going to go through all of them now, but I do just want to touch on a couple of them. Firstly, it's really important to understand better where your money goes by undertaking an analysis of your procurement spend. And also, as we've said, it's an activity that shouldn't take place in isolation, because you're wanting to address those wider challenges. And as such, it's a key corporate and policy function. Next slide, please. We've also found, as we've worked on making spend matter, that there can be a disconnect between what we as buyers are seeking to buy and how we buy it, and what suppliers understand we want to buy. So it's important for us to raise awareness with our suppliers regarding this, to build a better understanding of the outcomes that we want to achieve. And this is a point that Igor, in fact, touched on earlier. And finally, it's really important to remember this shouldn't be a one-off process. So our final recommendation is about reviewing and remembering, because it's a cycle. Once you get to the monitoring stage, it's key to review how things have gone. As with everything we do, there are some things that might have worked well and others that haven't worked quite so well. And it's important to take the time to take stock and adjust so that it works as well or better the next time. And finally, from me, I would like to say that the last 2.5 years have been an incredible journey. The network has achieved a lot in a short space of time. And we in Preston are proud to have been able to share what we have done. And as lead partner coordinator, I feel really privileged to have had the opportunity to make Making Spend Matter a reality. I am also really grateful to our partners and our experts for helping to make this transfer network the success it has been, and look forward to hearing about our partners' ongoing strategic procurement journeys in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamar. I'd just like to close the conference with a call for action. We've been on a wonderful journey over the course of the last 2.5 years as part of Making Spend Matter. Our partners have achieved a huge amount, but what we would really like to see happen is all cities adopt the principles of strategic procurement across Europe. Our cities face so many challenges contemporarily. We've got the challenge of climate change. We've got the challenge of migration. We've got the challenges posed by COVID, including around increases in unemployment, increases in challenges around business sustainability, and increases in challenges around low pay and poor skills amongst our populations. We firmly believe that procurement can be used as a lever to address some of those challenges, and that the outcomes of Making Spend Matter can support more cities to start that journey to be more strategic in procurement. And to help you on that journey, there's a number of links on this final slide. Don't forget the Making Spend Matter toolkit, which has lots of case studies, frequently asked questions documents, videos, and tools about how you can undertake spend analysis yourselves and how you can start that journey towards strategic procurement. We've got our webpage, which has a range of articles written by our experts and our cities about how they have progressed along this journey. As Marceline mentioned and promoted, we've got the URBACT online training course on strategic procurement, which is available for everyone to utilize to think about how you embed social and environmental considerations into procurement. And finally, there's been the work of the EU Urban Agenda Partnership on Innovative and Responsible Public Procurement, which is probably the longest sentence I've said all day, but that also has a range of training materials and action papers around how you can progress and become more strategic in procurement. So finally, I'd just like to say some thank yous. I'd like to say thank you to Schaerbeek for hosting this event and the welcome from Cecile and Thomas that we've had to Schaerbeek. Such a shame we can't be with you in person, but these things happen, right? Thank you to Vo, who have been the people in the background, flashing the screens on and off as we've all been talking. Thank you for all your support and your technical hosting in the lead up to the conference. Thank you to Preston and our Making Spend Matter partners. We're so proud of what you've achieved over the course of the last 2.5 years, and we hope that that continues on to the future. Today is not the end of this Making Spend Matter transfer network. I think it's the start of the beginning of something quite special, actually, in all of your cities. Thank you to Emma and John, who have been my fellow experts on the network. We've worked really collaboratively and well together, and thank you for all your support in the lead up to this conference. Thank you to our speakers, so Marceline, Stefan, Igor, and Thomas, and also to Cecile and Adele from earlier on. And finally, the biggest thank you goes to all of you for taking the time of your busy schedules to come and listen to a conference about the very exciting topic of strategic procurement. Thanks a lot, and we will see you all soon. Bye-bye.